or if you want to.
No, you go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead. We are live and direct.
All right, I'm gonna
video off?
Yeah, video off, because then we can get the bandwidth.
Right. Not to have to look at each other's faces.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
So I've got a nice little picture of you here. It's great. It's all good. All right, so an introduction to... Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Salted Bites. Glad you could join us. I'm here with James, my co-host. Say hello, James.
Hey ho.
And I'm
How's
Chris.
everybody doing? Yes, you are.
I am indeed. That was shit. Let's start that again.
Okay, sorry. I'll stop. I'm really bad at interrupting.
No, you're fine. It's all good. It's all good. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Hello, that. Can you hear, like, I've got my fan on, actually. That's kind of distracting me. I'm going to turn it off.
I can't actually hear it, to be honest.
No?
No.
All right, it's going back on because it's fucking hot here.
Yeah, it's fucking pissing it down with rain here. Oh, no, it's not. I lie. It's just shit.
It's just grey.
Cold.
Right?
Yeah. Grey and miserable like my heart.
And on that note, I would like to welcome our listeners to the glory of this episode 6 of Salted Bites. I'm Chris Quinn, and I'm coming to you from sunny Spain, from Jerez, where the land flows with milk and honey. There are grapes growing outside in the garden, and it's generally hot and wonderful. And here's my co-host, James Best, who's broadcasting from the grey shores of Bristol, where tragedy and despair stalk the land.
It's funny because it's true.
How are you doing, James?
I'm ace. Thank you very much. I'm a bit tired, but I suppose that's part and parcel of being a parent. But
yes, it is.
It's all good.
Shout out to all the developers out there who are developers and parents. We feel the pain.
Yeah, I saw an amazing tweet from somebody, and it just said it all about a guy who just had a baby, and he was declaring his love for all fathers and how he felt sorry that he'd never really realized how fucking hard it is actually turning up to work when you're a new dad or mum, that is, a new parent. She's like, I'm just amazed you turned up, because it's fucking hard.
It's hardcore, isn't it? You go into that sprint meeting or a stand up, and your project manager is saying, right, we really need to get a little bit sharper on adding time estimates to these tickets, and you're standing there, you're caffeinated out of your eyeballs, and you're barely clinging to sanity, and this guy talking about adding fucking time estimates to Trello cards. It gives you a certain perspective on life, I think.
It does. It makes you realize what's important and what's not, what's real and what's fake. Time estimates, and that fucking fake.
Anyway. Well, yes, welcome everybody to our episode of Salted Bites. We've got a bit of a new format for you all to listen to today. We have got two new sections of the show that we are going to test upon you like guinea pigs. Yeah, sure, that works.
Do you test on guinea pigs? Jesus, you're a savage.
Now, hang on there. Now, for starters, my wife is half Peruvian. So we eat guinea pigs. We do not test upon them. The only things we would test upon them are tasty new marinades.
Okay? Are they tasty? Is it just like chicken?
I do not like them. I've tried them. In fact, I documented the process of a guinea pig being, killed and generally processed, gutted, and all the rest of it, and cooked in front of me. And
I bet their fur comes off like a little jacket. That's how it is with a rabbit. It comes off like a little coat.
Yeah, not so much with these guys. They're quite tenacious, even in death.
Really?
I'm not quite sure how we got talking about this, but anyway, what we should do, James, is we should...
Doomed! This episode is already doomed.
It's not doomed. Press ahead. Look, we've got a brand new section to wrap our collective minds around. This new section is we're going to do salted news, a Salted Bites news blitz, and it's going to give our listeners a quick run through of some interesting stories that you and I have seen over the past couple of weeks, just as like a quick fire way of saying, hey, this is what's going on in tech. Sometimes it'll be very on point. Sometimes it'll be completely ridiculous. And so we've got a bit of a mix of these this time.
Cool.
Do you want to take the first one, James, or shall I?
Well, I'm going to take the first one because it just sounds amazing.
Do it.
Japan bans drunk droning. What a fucking headline. Oh my God. As always, you've probably guessed who this is from. This is the Register. Come up with some classic headlines. And for the it's so good. For public safety, there's no drunk droning allowed. The title just gets better. For the drunk droning for the sake of public safety. Yes.
The pun game is strong at the Register.
Oh, it's quite incredible.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, though, the full headline is...
Oh, sorry. I thought you were waiting for me.
Yeah, it's yours.
Japan drops ban hammer on drunk droning for the sake of public safety. Yes.
It's so good. Have you your designated droner?
It's so good. You get quite a hefty fine though, £2,200. That's going to sting.
Yeah, it's a definite deterrent, isn't it?
Yeah, right. There's more. If you get caught doing stupid stunts, you get 3,600. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, it's kind of like it comes from a good place, but the oh god damn it! When you put it the way the Register does, it's just utter comedy. Anyway, on to the next news item. These are our rapid fire news bites. So we'll quickly move past the hilariousness of Japan banning drunk droning to a more somber topic, and one that is quite close to both of our hearts, I think. But Troy Hunt just put a post on his blog talking about the future of our favorite service, if you like, Have I Been Power Owned? Yeah. Listeners of the show should know this and should be using it. If you're not, what the fuck are you doing? But basically, Troy Hunt has been running Have I Been Power Owned for, I guess, a year or two now. And it's a service where you can check if one of your accounts has been compromised in a recent breach. So you can put in your email address and you can check to see if your email address and the account associated with that was associated with a data breach, meaning that your password or other personally identifiable information could be compromised. And he put a blog post out talking about this, and he's basically putting it up for sale.
He is going to make a fucking fortune. Oh my God.
I mean, Godspeed, Mr. Hunt. Like, you can add another annex to your already giant house.
Yeah, it's not like he's hurting for cash, is it? But just think how much money he's going to get paid for that. Someone like Firefox or 1Password will buy all that data, hoard it all for themselves, and make their service better than everybody else's.
Yeah, this is an opportunity. This acquisition will put whoever picks this up, they will be at the forefront of whatever. I don't know if this is an industry unto itself quite yet, but they will put themselves at the forefront of, info security of, of password, of being an integral part of a password manager, and would cement, somebody's portfolio very significantly. So yeah, he's not going to be hurting for cash. I feel like it's a bit of a tragedy, but then this was kind of always going to happen. I think it was too big for one man.
What do you think the likelihood of him adding like stipulations into the contract when he sells it that it has to remain open source, etc., etc.?
He has talked about what he's going to do. I mean, aspirational blog post promises are one thing. He made a list of 7 commitments. I won't read them out now because this is beyond the scope of this. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode. But he does want to ensure that Have I Been Power Owned in its current philosophical mindset continues into the future, even if it is acquired and made into some sort of horrible corporate entity. Troy. Anyway, item number 3, I'm assaulted by its new blitz. James.
This is all you. Okay, I was going to say this is all you.
All right.
I haven't actually read this one.
All right, I'll do it then. Okay, everybody's favorite acronym, GCHQ. Shout out to the GCHQ people listening to this show. Whether you're monitoring us because we're a threat to the nation or you're just a fan of the show, hi. So GCHQ. If you don't know who they are, go look them up. That's not the purpose of this news item. But basically, what they want to do is they want every single decent app, a app that kind of operates at scale and is well used. They want to add a ghost user, specifically for encrypted messaging services, by the way. But tech firms like Apple, the Tor project, and stuff like that, they want to add a ghost user to spy on people.
Sounds like horseshit to me, but
I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, how did this make it out of a committee meeting at GCHQ? They said, oh, do you know what we could do? We could just go and ask all the tech companies to compromise everything they've ever worked for in terms of data security and individuals' privacy. Should we do that? Yeah, okay, let's go and do that. We'll put the link to this in the show notes, but suffice to say, it's a sort of one of those proposals that's probably very well-meaning, but in terms of the practicalities of making this a reality, making this ghost user a reality, I mean, all it would take is one bad actor to work out what the credentials for that ghost user are, and you've effectively compromised your entire service. So, an interesting news item that I would encourage anybody following InfoSec and that sort of thing to go and take a look at if you haven't seen it already.
Indeed. Do you not think there are slight comparisons with this and the Huawei stuff? It's
my way or the Huawei.
Because didn't China fund the building of Kenya's what's it called? Their big place in China, where they consulate.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Kenya have a consulate in China, like every other country,
yeah.
And they had it rebuilt. And China funded a huge proportion of the rebuild, and they also provided all the IT services, which was Huawei. So they went and put in computer systems, all the networking, everything. It later transpires a year later that it was bugged, and whether Huawei knew that was the case or not, and whether they're actually in bed with the Chinese government or not is up for debate. But this is surely doing a similar thing, but it's in the fucking news. They're basically bugging all the big popular apps.
Well, they want to.
How is that any different?
It's not, though. That is exactly the thing. It's not. It's exactly the same. It's just China just went ahead and did it instead of issuing a white paper about it. So, there is that. And also, shout out to anyone from the Chinese government listening to the podcast to see if we're subversive. Maybe we should say some more subversive things to get listened to by more government agents. Oh dear. Actually, on the subject of people listening to the show, shout out to Vasily and Yuri if you're listening to the show. A couple of my co-workers I introduced to the podcast, and shout out to you guys. Anyway, let's James. I think we've covered our salted blitz news items. I think we should. We should blitz further and start talking about our main topic for this podcast.
Woohoo! This is a fave of mine.
It is indeed. We are going to be talking about AWS Amplify.
Drum roll. Oh, too late. Drum roll should have gone first, shouldn't it?
It really should have done. Yeah, pretty much. But I think you've got enough energy though to bring to the table for this, because this is very much your bag, isn't it, James?
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. It's so good. Particularly for the type of work that we do. It's fantastic.
You being GravityWell, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
top down, some people on the show will have heard us mention this before. In fact, we talked about it on the PWA episode a little bit. But for anybody who hasn't used it before, hasn't heard us talk about it before, what is it?
So we all know who AWS are. Or if we don't, it's Amazon Web Services. And they offer a plethora of services. Like the list is is crazy.
It's stupid.
It's unbelievable. And if they don't do it, they will do it eventually. They just seem to jump on every single bandwagon. And obviously, each of these services has its own SDK and its own quirks, so aren't necessarily easy to work with. And then that's individually. Once you start trying to join together and you're trying to do things through the AWS dashboard, it becomes an absolute nightmare.
Okay, but
So
Amplify, though, like what exactly is Amplify in this context?
I was getting to that. Patience is a virtue, my friend.
Yeah, well, get on with it.
So Amplify allows you to bring all these services together in a. So Amplify is essentially an abstraction layer over all these services, and gives you the glue that you need to join them up together in a really, really nice, simple CLI, or CLI, as I've heard people calling it supposedly.
No, that's no. I refuse that. No.
CLI.
Who the fuck calls it a CLI?
I don't know, but
That's
it was enough people that Nader Dabit, who is associated with AWS Amplify, had to do a Twitter poll because he had enough people call it a CLI that he thought he was stupid and had never heard of it before. And yeah, something like 90% of people said it was CLI, obviously, and 10% of people said CLI. Anyway, that's aside. That's an aside.
I have no words. Yep.
Yeah. So essentially, AWS Amplify is the collection of various SDKs. It produces, has UI elements. It has CLI, which is the meat of it, and it also now has a console on the AWS dashboard. It's pretty goddamn great.
Oh, cool. I really like your phrase, the glue, which binds a lot of disparate AWS services together under one wrapper. I really like that that terminology. So
yes,
okay, it's okay. So it's a collection of services, right? So that's good. That's a good thing. But why, like as a developer, why should I use AWS Amplify at all? What is the most kind of, what are the headline attractions? What are the benefits?
So Amplify is not the only one that does this thing. Google has Firebase and their Firebase CLI. I'm sure Microsoft has something that they do, but I have no idea. There are lots of other providers. But the developer experience that Amplify provides it's just incredible. It just makes it so easy to put together really, really complex systems in the smallest amount of keystrokes. So, for example, if I could just quickly run you through how you would set up a serverless backend, you have in my instance, it'd be React or create React app, and you've already got the CLI installed. And when you install the CLI, you configure it and you attach it to an IAM role within your AWS account, and that gives the CLI access to the whole of your AWS account. Within your project, you just run Amplify init, and that generates the base files, gives you an AWS exports file, and then you just pick your services. So you need authentication. Amplify add auth. That'll run you through a few select questions about what sort of authentication you want. Generally, for most situations, you'll just be using the default setup, which is Cognito with username and password setup. You do Amplify push, bam. It then creates a CloudFormation template for you, which includes your Cognito. It sets up the Cognito pools for you. And there you go. You have access. You have a fully working authentication system backend. It's as simple as that.
I mean, that's kind of, it's scary. That's mind blowing, because as somebody who has relatively intimate knowledge of the AWS kind of console, it's not a mean feat to set up Cognito, to configure everything you need to configure correctly for all of that to work. Like, to have that abstracted away for you, from you, and to just happen in a few
It's
keystrokes that's a game changer, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and so with if you're using React, you also, if you install the Amplify React package, you get a load of UI elements. So if you're wanting to put something together really, really quickly, they give you a higher order component which gives you the sign up and sign in forms. You don't even have to code the fucking forms. You just wrap your app component in with Authenticator. That's it.
And that's it.
It's amazing.
Could
And
you,
then
like,
when you log in, when you go into your account, the auth package, which is part of Amplify, checks your local storage for a user. If the user doesn't exist, then it just shows you this login form. If you haven't signed up before, you sign up and you have different modes of verification. So you can choose to have an email or text message verification. So you sign up with your username and password, and then based on which one you've chosen, it will send you a code. And
that's ridiculous.
the Amplify package knows that you need to enter the code. You put in the code and you're verified. Done. Like 5 lines of code.
Yeah, but that's like, usually you budget for this stuff when you cost a project. I mean, a few years ago, that's like 2 weeks of development.
Yeah, exactly.
Because,
and then if you don't want to use their components, you don't want to use that, you want to have your own custom form. The SDK comes with maybe 30 different methods off the auth, the main auth class, that allows you to do all of that with your own custom form.
that's ridiculous, man. I mean, that solves one of the biggest problems you get with custom built web applications trying to do something with a user login and building their own and failing.
Exactly.
There's 90% of the problems you have with anything that requires user accounts is around the user authentication, and it's probably not secure. Whatever you've built. Whatever you've built is probably not secure, and the like to have a solution for that out of the box, a robust solution as well, is really interesting.
And I mean, as I said, Cognito is not the only one. You have Firebase authentication, which my understanding of it from a couple of years ago is as simple. But when you work for an agency that is deeply in bed with AWS, having this service is just amazing. And the evangelists like Nader Dabit they seem to be so much more vocal and so much more available to lesser folk like us, and like they'll happily answer questions on Twitter. They're super active, but I don't generally seem to hear that much from the Google Firebase team, and whether that's because I don't necessarily follow the right people or what, but I don't know.
It could be, but that's really important though, to have, with a framework or a library, if you have not support, but a community that exists beyond just some cold documentation, it really does buy you in more to the ecosystem.
Exactly. And I mean, there's a couple of guys. There's so Nader, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Terrible. His Twitter picture, he's got a hat on. That's as much as I can remember.
But yeah.
They're just, yeah, you know what I mean.
Hat
yeah, they're just so active, and like they're all the conferences. I mean, I wouldn't want Nader Dabit's life. He seems to be on the road all the time. It's got to be really, really hard. But I mean, maybe it's not something you do for many, many years. Maybe it's something that you do for a couple of years and then kick back with something else. Who knows?
Yeah, essentially. But okay, so Amplify seems like it already solves one of the biggest challenges in building web applications that we would face. So, I mean, that's one big problem it solves. Now,
yes,
there are, as we know, when you build any web application, there's a whole plethora of stuff that it's kind of like a checklist, isn't it? Most apps have these things. It's very rare that they don't. So we talked about authentication. We've talked things, really simple stuff like some local storage, maybe some analytics. What if I want to do something slightly more complex and I want to interact with a database in some real time? I mean, how do we?
It's all there, and so like, I'm a big lover of GraphQL. I've got nothing against REST, but GraphQL is for complex systems where you want to be cherry picking data, it's just better. Like, there's no doubt about it. And from a front end dev's point of view, it's the fucking shit. It's amazing. All you're making a request to a single endpoint, done. From a back end engineer's point of view, it is fucking bullshit. Writing all the you've got a MySQL database and you're writing the resolvers to pull this data so your front end developer can have this lovely single endpoint API. Fuck that.
Okay, wow. So
Amplify.
actually,
Sorry, carry on.
no, you go.
I was going to say Amplify again. So last time we wanted to create auth, we did Amplify add auth. We want to add a GraphQL endpoint. Amplify adds API. You get two options. You get to choose GraphQL or you get to choose REST. You then get so we're going to choose GraphQL because, as we just said, we love GraphQL. You then get presented with a load of options. You get a choice of whether you're going to be writing in Flow, JavaScript, TypeScript. And with those options, you will then be given the typings for all the code that you're going to be writing for your GraphQL. You then get asked whether you have a schema already. If you have a schema, it will use that schema to generate all the resolvers. If you don't have a schema, it then gives you the option to create a schema there and then. So then you click, yes, I want to generate the schema. And it creates a GraphQL file for you with a dummy schema. And a classic, it's a to-do schema. Obviously, you're going to sack that off and you start writing your schema for your data object. You then click enter and it generates your GraphQL schema with these things called directives. So because obviously GraphQL is a standard thing, for AWS to be able to use it in a clever way, they've generated the GraphQL transformer. I think that's what it's called. And this allows you to add directives to your GraphQL schema. Things like when you're creating a type in your schema, if you add the directive model, that knows that has to create a model for that type. If you add auth, depending on the authorization type that you're using, which we can get into in a minute, it will then lock down that schema based on the auth type that you've chosen. You do amplify push, it then goes off to Amplify, writes these CloudFormation templates, and generates your API for you. It creates the DynamoDB tables. It does all the linking, all the resolvers, everything. So no more back-end developer moaning about having to write these resolvers. It does this shit for you.
Jesus.
If you add last one we can talk about now. If you add the searchable directive to it, so you want to be able to search on this piece of data, it will create an Elasticsearch server database for you on the fly. You don't have to fucking do anything. It's just so easy. It's not infallible. It has its foibles, particularly with accessing data. But that's something we can get onto next. It makes it so easy. And having written back-end GraphQL servers, like, it's just, yeah, it saves you so much time. 5 minutes, you can have an endpoint up.
I mean, that seems to be one of the strongest across all of the different utilities and tools that Amplify is offering here. This sort of quicker time to market and just getting from zero to, okay, we've got something working in no time at all. That's so powerful. Because navigating the AWS, as we keep saying, navigating all of these services, configuring them yourself. Today, I spent an inordinate amount of time fighting with code build just to get it to do something that I wanted it to do. And I'm not saying Amplify solves that, but it's sort of a symptom of where you're, as a developer, you're not writing code, but instead you're configuring architecture and trying to navigate your way through either AWS or Google Cloud or Azure's offerings. And that in itself is, it's a real challenge. So Amplify seems to cut through a lot of that.
It does. It does. Yeah. As I think, you can get, like, not joking, you can get an app, like a really, really simple Create React app. You add Amplify, you add a GraphQL endpoint, you push some data to it, and you deploy it to build it statically and deploy it to S3, 15 minutes. Obviously, this is bare bones. It's not going to be doing very much. It might be displaying some data you've pre-populated in your database. 15 minutes. That's deployed.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
That's pretty amazing. But like, okay, so those are some of the headline. Those are some of the headline features, and we've talked about it solves the problem of taking ages to configure stuff. I think, and it sort of solves a lot of complex operations by, like a lot of object-oriented programming, right? You say, do this thing, and just give me the result. Like, go away and do everything you need to do. You know, when you instantiate an object, you say, here, object, have some parameters, and just give me back the result, right?
Yeah.
Do that, and the Amplify seems to sort of follow this philosophy, but beyond that, it also has, like, it seems to say, right, well, not just stuff that you would do just with AWS, but stuff you would do generically. Like we mentioned analytics already, but does it also do a service worker for you?
No, so it's a serverless backend. So your service worker would be generated through CRA, through Create React App. That's my understanding. I'm not one. I don't generally use service workers, so it's
no, sure thing. It does. It
generate. It does do that.
Yeah.
That's not something I've used before.
No, but that's just it.
Now I know.
Like, yeah, I mean, you've got stuff that you would just normally do. Like, you don't even have to think, well, okay, that's fine, but I don't use AWS normally, so this doesn't solve a problem for me. That's kind of my point here. So, but doing stuff like, you know, really basic stuff that you do in pretty much any web application, right? So, internationalization, service workers, caching. As far as I understand it, Amplify offers these utilities as part of the ecosystem that you buy into. So one counterpoint to using Amplify is there's some serious vendor lock-in going on here. You know, you couldn't take this Amplify app easily and transplant it to another hosting provider. But that's the point, isn't it? That it's also heavily opinionated that you're getting a lot of benefit, but the trade-off being that you are now baked into an AWS solution.
Yeah, very much so.
I'm not. That's not a bad thing, but
no, I mean, it could be. It's one of those things that I think it depends on the situation that you're using it in. If you're a sole developer, and then it could be a problem if AWS suddenly went bust. That's never going to happen. Do you see how rich Bezos is? Oh, that shit's never going to happen. But like vendor lock-in with something that is maybe a little bit more fragile, I can definitely understand that. From an agency point of view, if you're already hosting 50 websites on AWS, the likelihood of being locked into AWS probably isn't that much of a big deal, unless they turn around and hike their prices up, which again probably isn't going to happen because competition is fierce. So I don't know. It's definitely a consideration, but I don't necessarily think it's something that is you should lose sleep over.
Okay.
Depending on the situation.
That's fair enough. Okay. So, what about? I mean, Amplify as a toolchain, you can use it for, as you've just said, you've got like Create React App, and can you build like native apps?
Yeah. So, I mean, because it's just a JavaScript SDK. Well, they also have Android and iOS, because it Amplify, before it was Amplify, was called AWS Mobile Hub, and it targeted native development only. So it didn't do any web. It didn't have a JavaScript SDK. It was Android and iOS, and then they started branching out. So it does, as I said, it has SDKs for Swift and for Java, and it also has like sister packages. So as I said before, you have the Amplify React package. You also have an Amplify React Native package, but the underlying Amplify SDK is the same for both. And I was writing an article today about using Amplify and React hooks, and I was able to take the majority of the demo code that I'd written for another article, which was a React Native article, and just do a find and replace of view to div and text to p, and it worked. Like no shit. I just basically copied the whole project and changed the DOM or container elements, and it worked.
That's ridiculous.
It's great.
That
Down
is
to
really
even like the UI elements being the same names.
Wow.
It's pretty crazy. And it meant that I could write this article in a couple of hours rather than having to write the demo app, which would take a couple of hours, and then the article, which would take a couple of hours. It meant the demo app was basically written.
I mean, yeah, there's so many wins you can get here. I mean, I guess, as you've said, if you are in the situation where you're in an agency, you're building for a myriad of different, you're building for web, you're also building native apps, have lots of plates spinning, and you're already baked into AWS. This seems to be like an absolute no-brainer for.
Yeah. And you're not limited to the services that Amplify provides, because this is AWS. So you still have access. You can use your Cognito pool to interact with any other service that AWS provides. It's just you're not going to have that nice generator for you. Ooh. So you just go into the console and you're linking your Cognito pools to your media transcoder. Or so in a previous hackathon, we built a web app and a mobile app, which lent heavily on Amplify, but also did video transcoding. And so that was all built with Amplify, but then we were also leaning on the other services of Amazon to do the other bits that weren't included in Amplify. And we were able to share components across the front end and the native app.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, and it meant that you're able to produce a much faster rate, because there's so much sharing of code, and we were able to share loads of our Redux code that was making these calls to Amplify across both code bases, meaning that one person could write it and then everyone else could use it.
And that's a good point, actually. How does using Amplify work in kind of like a team-based scenario where it's not just one developer writing the entire thing and pushing it? What considerations do you need to make for using Amplify in a team?
I think it massively depends on the app. Excuse me. So it massively depends on the needs of the app. So you have the ability to create environments. So you could have, same as you would have branches in Git, you have environments in Amplify.
Oh, right.
So you would just do Amplify env list, and that will list out the environments. So when you first do your Amplify init, it will ask you to give a name for the environment, and you generally create the dev environment first. And then if you have a developer who wanted to test a new feature and add a new piece of functionality, which included a new service from AWS, they could do Amplify env checkout and then the new branch name, the new environment name. They can then go away, do whatever they want to do. It works, great. They merge that into master, and then they merge their environments.
Wow, okay.
And then someone can check out that environment, and they have all the new features. It's also good for things like, so the production version of Amplify will create a CDN for you in CloudFront. But then every time you want to do a deploy, you have to clear out the CloudFront cache. If the app's quite big, then it means that takes that much longer. So with your development environment, you could have it caching turned off. Your production environment, you have caching turned on. But I mean, lots of apps. Yeah, it's really, really good. Lots of apps might not need that. So we've just finished a hackathon, and the backend was relatively simple. It was much more front end heavy. So after a day and a half, the backend was kind of finished. So then we all just worked off the same environment. We worked the same database. It meant that we were able to, because a lot of this was real time, so we were leaning on GraphQL subscriptions. So it meant that we could all be playing each other while we were testing the app.
Nice.
Very cool.
I mean, it does seem to solve a big problem of sort of sharing a code base in a team, in that sharing the infrastructure and making that infrastructure portable, and making sure that your team is all working on not only the same code base, but also in their test environments using identical setups. That seems to solve that problem as well.
Yeah, it does cause issues though. So sometimes if you're working on very transient data where you're working on a table and some people are working on portions of the table where they're changing data, but somebody else is working on the same piece of data and they need that data to stay the same. And so you end up having to do funny business with not deleting data, not changing it while somebody else is working on it, because you're all working on the same data pool. So in that situation, you either have to be very vocal as developers and you change portions of your code so you're picking off different parts of data, or you create these environments and then you have your own Dynamo database where you can do whatever you want to do before you merge back in and join up your work again.
Okay, interesting. All right, awesome. So I think we've covered a lot on Amplify there, and in terms of what it does do well. What, in your opinion, could it be better at? I mean, I haven't heard any or seen much sort of discussion about testing. Do you just use kind of whatever JavaScript testing framework you might want to use normally in any kind of web app, like Jest, I guess, right?
Yes. I mean, for hackathons, we're very much of the opinion that I coined a new phrase today from somebody on Twitter. We do TTDD, TypeScript, typed definition development. So basically, we don't do testing. We just have really strict types, and that covers a whole myriad of bugs. Like, you're going to avoid so many bugs from just doing very, very strict typing. So yeah, we didn't do a huge amount of testing for the last round of Amplify work that we did, but for things like GraphQL, you're just testing it the same way you would test any other GraphQL endpoint. End-to-end testing, you use Cypress. And Cypress, you create a Cypress user account incognito, and then you're allowing Cypress to log in and run through your app as it would do any other app. At the end of the day, it's a nice layer over services that you'd be testing in any way anyway. So, but how would you test login if it wasn't done through Amplify? You provide it username and password. It's no different from Amplify because all you're doing is logging in with the username and password. So the theories are the same. You are testing on live data, but again, that's why you have environments. So maybe you create a testing environment.
Nice.
That you then run your tests against.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think sometimes with these all singing or dancing frameworks, things like testing can not necessarily be overlooked, but people get confused about how they would do them because they think that these frameworks are really complex. But at the end of the day, they're not doing anything different to how you'd be doing if they were all separate components. Like, it's just authentication at the end of the day. Like, how would you test authentication if it wasn't in Amplify? Well, you do exactly the same as you test it in Amplify because it's just authentication.
Okay, cool. I suppose you're handing off where you would say unit test if you wrote your own login. If you wrote your own user account sort of handling thing, then you have to buy into unit testing the shit out of that. But by using AWS's battle tested drop-in, which has tens of thousands of man hours behind its development, you're kind of saying, well, I trust this more than I trust myself to write a perfect login script, which is, and exactly. you kind of drive that testing just from the kind of from the application level point of view rather than unit testing. Awesome. Okay, right, James. What if there was one other thing you could say about why people should use Amplify over, I don't know, literally anything else in the world? Well, what's the one thing that makes you happy about using Amplify?
Just so I'm a big proponent of DevX of developer experience. Like, our jobs are hard enough as it is, so anything that can make them easier is a big win for me. So things like Amplify, where they take the pain out of putting all these services together, is huge for me, because it means that I can concentrate on the complex business logic, not whether I should be using fucking JWTs or writing my own logins. That, like, if I don't need to think about that, then that's a huge win for me.
That's a fantastic answer. So if somebody is interested, we've sold them. You've sold them, James. You've sold me on Amplify. Like, what's next? Where can I go? Where can I go to find out more? I mean, sure, I can go and read Amazon's documentation. In this case, it's actually all right.
It's really, really good. Yeah. Hunt out Nada Dabbit. So he's an AWS mobile evangelist, and he's at every conference you can imagine. He's always writing. He does loads of videos, and he has a wealth of knowledge. And he's super approachable on Twitter as well. So yeah, he's definitely one to get in touch with. Also, what's his name? Yeah, I can't remember. There's another guy. He's really buff. He's always putting out workout videos. Yeah, him.
Okay.
Those tattoos. I can tell you what he looks like.
Kurt Kemble.
What's his name? I don't know.
I just found the first muscly tattooed dude who works with GraphQL on Twitter, and his name's Kurt Kemble. So shout out to Kurt Kemble, whoever you are.
That's it. That's actually him.
Is that right? There we are then. What a guess.
Yeah. That's exactly him. Yeah. They should cut all the buff bits out there.
James, they're staying in. Sorry. And we're going to tweet it at Kurt as well and be like, cool. Fantastic. Thank you. That was an excellent run through of Amplify. That was you've mentioned you've written some articles actually.
Yeah. So they're on the Gravity. So the company I work for is gravitywell.co.uk, and some are on there, and some are also on our Medium publication, on the Salted Bytes Medium publication. So I've just literally written one that was published today, which is about using GraphQL, and in this case AWS AppSync, with React hooks and all the beautiful benefits you get from that. It's quite amazing, using Apollo and React hooks rather than choosing Apollo's query and mutation components. But yeah, check out my article. I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah, it's a good one.
Excellent stuff. Awesome. Thank you very much, James. We will hopefully we sell some people on the benefits of Amplify.
And if I haven't quite sold it to you, and you're in Bristol in September, I'm going to be doing a meetup talk with Bristol JS about writing React Native apps with Amplify. So come and check it out.
You should definitely check that out. I did think for a minute there you were going to say, I'm in Bristol. If you don't agree with me, I will fight you. I thought you were throwing down there, but no.
No, I want to further share my knowledge.
That is awesome. No, when's that? September?
September, yeah, end of September.
Okay, I might have to make an excuse to come back to the UK if I'm allowed back, and to come and heckle you. That sounds like that sounds good. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Boom. Okay, let us move on to now. This is our second new section of the show. We're going to just spice things up with a little bit of things that make you go, Now, coined from the
ponder, or is that I like that?
Both at the same time.
Wow.
It can also be something that you're not sure you like, or that is just plain fucking weird. Coined after the fantastic song from the 90s. I forget who it is. But this section is just an opportunity for us to highlight something that either makes us think, oh my gosh, that's actually really, really clever, or that's very suspect, but I don't know why. Anyway, all will become clear. The first thing I'm going to kick this new section off.
Okay.
made me go, was Roro. And for anybody thinking my microphone just broke up there, I wasn't trying to do a Scooby-Doo impression. I was in fact talking about RORO. So these letters stand for receive object, return object.
Okay.
With me so far. So, okay.
That's all.
No, not at all. Fair enough. All right, let's move on. No, basically, you have as you probably do, you probably worked on, you have a big behemoth of a JavaScript application that's doing all sorts of crazy stuff. You've got classes over here, you're extending stuff over there. You've got some functional programming because you heard Eric Elliott talk about it, and you're like, yeah, this is cool. But basically, your application is good, but it's a mishmash of programming styles, concepts, and philosophies. Roro, I love saying that so much. Basically, if you are a function or a method, you're receiving parameters. Okay, this is something we all grapple with day to day. We're receiving some parameters here. Now, typically, when you declare parameters in a function signature or a method, you are saying, right, I want this parameter, comma, this parameter, parameter A, parameter B, parameter C. Now, if you declare your parameters like that, that's fine. What's the problem with that, Chris? Well, what could happen is that the scope of the function changes, or you change what you want to do in that function. You think, yeah, I need client ID here as well. I'll just tack that on the end. What you now have to do is you now have to go and update every single time you've either called that function, or you need to do something else. You can't just add another parameter there, or you need to add handling to the function or the method to kind of respect the fact that this parameter may not always be handed to you. Basically, you've just given yourself a fuck ton more work just by adding that parameter. Vice versa, when you're calling that function or that method from somewhere else, you need to basically be referencing the function you're calling and saying, okay, I need to make sure I hand all of these. And if I don't, I need to understand what's happening in that method to either handle the absence of that parameter or not, or whatever. Basically, it's a bit of a mess. It can be a bit of a mess, especially lots of different people with lots of different philosophies working on how do I shuttle information or data from here to here, and how do we handle this? So you as a developer, you may think, I'm just going to pass everything as an array or as an object, and I'm going to destructure it. I'm going to pick it apart on the other end in that function, in the destination. And that might be fine, but you may have then, developer B, let's call him Dave. Dave doesn't like doing that. Dave likes handing his functions, each single, not as an object, not bound together in an object, but each kind of, each individual parameter being, like ID, name, date, everything like that spread across the function. He might like doing it like that. Of course, the problem with that is it makes things incredibly brittle, as I've already discussed. So Roro, receive an object, return an object, a very simple coding philosophy that you can use to make working with big JavaScript applications, or even small ones, just a bit less painful. Now, okay, the benefits of this approach. Basically, if you always pass an object and always return an object, if that's, if you're returning anything, you effectively say, right, this is how we're doing things. This is how we're sending information from here to here, or this is how I'm invoking this function or this method. I will always pass an object. And if I'm receiving something, it will always be an object. What this lets you do is it lets you do things like named parameters. So when you pass your parameters, you can give them a name, even if that's not what it was called when you threw it in there. It allows you to set things like be very specific with your default parameters, and allows you to say, okay, this parameter is required. And it allows you to be very declarative about that as well when you use this object-based structure. And it makes function composition easier because you will always know what's coming in and what's going out, and you don't have to kind of evaluate type and stuff. Now, you may think, okay, well, TypeScript handles a lot of this kind of stuff. Sure, fine. Not everybody's writing TypeScript. And this should be, but not everybody is. Also, you can actually bring this into a TypeScript environment, this philosophy. That's going to be the sum total of my explanation, because anything further is going to be incredibly abstract and all I would encourage anybody listening to this to do is to check out the link we'll put in the show notes to an overview of what Roro is. I think it's an excellent programming paradigm, and I think it especially excels in environments where multiple people are working on the same code base, because when you, as a team, when you declare a very sort of consistent way of working with code and with calling methods and functions, it makes your life a damn lot easier, because you
Yeah, it's
know,
like a style guide, isn't it?
yeah,
It's saying
is.
we expect this and we're giving this back. And then if everybody does that, less shit breaks.
Boom, less shit breaks. And that's it. That's the thing that makes me go,
Nice.
awesome stuff. Do you have, James, do you have anything that makes you go,
Well, so I think so. It might be closer to a pick, but it's something that has struck me as being incredibly cool. So you may have seen it recently. Is a new package been released called ZDog. ZDog.
Ooh, no, go on.
So it's a 3D JavaScript engine for Canvas and SVG. It is amazing. It just makes working with 3D objects in Canvas super easy. So it has a really nice API. And so you do like new ZDog Eclipse and you pass in a load of parameters, and it then creates you your desired shape. I'll have to send you. I will put the link in the show notes. It's pretty goddamn amazing, because we all know that working with Canvas is a complete shit, and even abstraction layers like Three.js are still a complete shit. But this it's just a very nice, simple to use API. Okay. I'm not going to talk about it as in much length as Roro, because I haven't played with it enough to give a good solid description of it.
Maybe this is the differentiator then. This is something that makes us go, but it hasn't graduated to being a pick yet because we haven't evaluated it.
That sounds like, that might be good.
That almost sounds like we know what we're doing.
Well, let's not overstep our mark here.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, those are the things that make us go,
Nice.
On to assaulted picks for this week. I say this week like we do this every week, but we don't do it every week. But
no, we are going to be more consistent going forward.
We are indeed. James, give us your salted pick.
So my salted pick is called Octolink. It is, I think it's called Octolink. Octolinker, sorry. It is a Chrome extension. It's a Chrome extension.
Okay.
So you know how awesome it is, where you're working on a massive code base and you see a method that you want to see the implementation of. So you hold command and you click it, and it takes you to that method in your code base.
The old IntelliSense, I think, is the...
Indeed. If you're using an IDE or a text editor that doesn't do that, you need to fucking sort yourself out. Octolinker is a Chrome extension that does the same thing for Git repos. So you're in GitHub and you're looking at a massive project and you're like, oh, I want to see what that file is. You fucking click on it and it opens it in a new tab.
Yeah,
mind blown.
That's a bit.
It is great.
That is very, very good.
Yeah, it's very cool. Interestingly, though, I did see on Twitter today that I think GitHub have actually released a similar thing in GitHub. So now you can actually click on links. So it kind of negates this, but we'll see how good it is.
Oh, that is
bear in mind that it is native to GitHub, so it's probably pretty good. But
yeah, that's I don't know. That's pretty sharp though. That is a good pick, James.
Thank you very much. What's your pick? Or are you gonna is it gonna be as good?
No. But you know what? Okay. It is still about GitHub. So do you know what? This is incredibly on theme. So our picks this week have been all about how wonderful GitHub is and how. Wait, hang on! Don't Microsoft own it now?
They do, but they're doing some good stuff at the moment, aren't they?
Evil.
I hate to say it, yeah, but
No, it's
look at all the amazing shit they've done with GitHub in the very short time that they've owned it.
yeah, fair enough. And VS Code is amazing. So, all right.
VS Code's
All right.
amazing. They're now giving you the opportunity to pay for the work that open source developers do. That's pretty fucking awesome.
That should be a pick in itself.
Yeah.
In all honesty, the fact that that's happening, that's amazing.
They've created their own repo registry. Down with NPM. Down with NPM. Boo, NPM. Sorry, your pick.
That's fine. Oh man, yeah. Okay, so just jumping on the GitHub love train, GitHub announced that they can automatically offer security patches for your project's third-party dependencies.
Oh wow!
Now, if you think, so what, then you probably don't maintain or use or do anything on GitHub, because this is a real thing.
Yeah.
Now,
sorry.
No, well, I'll just say that basically, what GitHub will do is they will notify you when like a patch is available for a dependency that you're using, and give you the option in just like a single click to, or even just have them happen automatically. Sorry, to just like actually be patched into your projects, and that's massive, because otherwise you kind of have to pay attention to, and which you kind of should do, but then again, if you've ever maintained a project, you'll know that this is not a trivial thing to do. But to be sort of continually looking out for security patches for your third-party dependencies is an absolute. That's going to take that. That's just going to be a massive time sink. So to have this happen automatically is a bit amazing.
It is. Is it only for patch releases though?
I believe so, because anything bigger than that, I think, would be
dangerous,
kind of biting off more than they could chew, sort of thing. But
yeah,
so you can do, as I just said, you can do them manually, because anything changing your code base without you knowing is a bit of a red flag. But to be honest, if it's a third-party dependency, I would contend you'd always want it to be the minimum, most possible secure version, if you like.
Yeah.
If you see what I mean. But
so I'm going to ask a question that you probably don't know the answer to.
Do it.
But so I'm assuming that it does the update and then creates a commit. What happens if you use a CI, if you have a CI/CD pipeline and you're committing to master and that triggers a CI/CD build? Is that what you'd be expecting, or?
Well, so what automatically gets created is a pull request.
Oh, okay, that's very cool.
Yeah, so you
can get to that bit.
No, it's okay. So you can have them pulled in automatically. But to be honest, if you're operating a CI pipeline and it does have triggers based on pull requests and things like that, I would hope that you are the sort of person that wouldn't just turn this on without thinking the rest of it through, I guess. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You'd want to watch out for that.
That's incredibly cool.
It's a cool one, I think, and it's definitely my pick for this time, because it's not like super smart or super sexy, but it's fucking useful, and I think that qualifies it as a pick.
Nice. I have one more pick, if you don't mind.
You will do this. You come in here and you say, "This is my pick," and then when we get talking about it, you say, "And one Steve Jobs style."
One more thing.
It's a new section on the show. Everyone, this is James's one more thing. Our show roster now.
But I feel like we should be sharing this with our listeners, or one of them. Listener,
at least two.
We don't count though, Chris.
Oh.
I've just got a shout about the latest release of Expo. Fuck me, it's so good. Like I was saying to you the other day that I was a big Expo hater when it first came out. Possibly a bit out of snobbery because it wasn't native and all this fucking nonsense. But I rebuilt an app with it recently. It is so good. And that rebuild was done with SDK32, and that was already amazing. And now with the recent release of SDK33, they've just added React hooks, which is huge, and also Expo Web, meaning that you can compile your app into a web app, which is goddamn amazing. And like, obviously, it's still in beta. It's going to have some teething issues, but once this is ready for production, it's going to have a huge effect on particular apps. Not all apps are going to suit it, but it's going to be big, and it will also generate your service worker for you and your PWA manifest. It's pretty goddamn amazing.
I mean, to be honest,
big love for Expo.
You had me at generate service worker. You know that no, I love that shit. So
yeah, it uses Workbox, which is supposedly the way to go. It is, yeah. The latest release, I've been pretty excited about it, and particularly having hooks in React Native. Obviously, it came with 59 release of React Native, but SDK32 was on 57, so it was a way off. And also, it now allows you to generate 64-bit Android apps, which is now a requirement of any app being added to the Android App Store.
Yes,
you have to provide 32 and 64-bit.
Yes.
So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty dope. Nice. Yeah. An excellent
cool.
Picks.
That's my picks.
Fantastic. James's one last thing.
We have the last word.
James's last word. I love it.
No. Be nice to each other.
Eat an apple.
So I think we're done. We done?
I think we are done. That was an excellent show. I think we had.
That was a banger.
Yeah. It was absolute smasher.
Cool. Should we sign off? Say goodbye. Wish everybody a lovely evening.
Thank you, everyone. All two of you. No, let's do. Let's do a nice little sign off from us both. Yes.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, cool.
Do you want me to do it or do you want to do it?
Oh, well, I led in. You can lead out.
Okie dokie. Well, that's all we have for this evening. Thank you very much for listening, and we hope to catch you soon. Take it easy and enjoy Amplify. It's the shit.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Boom.
Done. Nice.